Hey, welcome back everybody. Happy Monday and happy total solar eclipse day for those of you who celebrate or are just lucky enough to be in the path of totality. And I really do think today a lot of folks are going to have some pretty nice viewing of that eclipse. Others, not so much, and I'll break all that down for you in today's video. But also what we're going to have to talk about today is severe weather and what is likely going to be a prolonged severe weather event, potentially even a severe weather outbreak before all is said and done from now through Thursday of this week. And honestly, I think we could see a pretty good amount of tornadoes this week, likely above that dozen mark, maybe even more than that. We'll see. But the ingredients are definitely there, and it is that time of the year where we really have to start watching for these setups to kind of produce widespread, high-impact severe weather. So again, that's kind of the main goal in today's video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and of course, consider sharing the video with somebody you think might find it useful, as again, a lot of people are going to be impacted by the storm system that is really getting going now, but especially by the time we get into tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'll really start to deepen and bring some pretty widespread impacts for all of us here in the East. Alrighty, with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into your forecast here because, again, it is Monday. I'm sure we all have a lot of plans, so let's go ahead and start to get on through this. Now, taking a look at our alert map and radar, things are still relatively quiet right now. Now, we do have some more widespread precipitation up into Minnesota, Wisconsin, back towards Montana, and also some scattered showers from portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York, all the way back down into the Tennessee River Valley. So these two places are definitely going to have some cloud cover issues today. But again, remember, our path of totality is kind of somewhere along these lines, if you will. Again, not exactly that, but that general area. So, a lot of the precipitation is kind of not directly over that path of totality, but still kind of close enough that we need to really be careful. And again, for some folks, it is even raining in that path of totality, specifically here near Erie and Cleveland. So, again, not going to be a great eclipse viewing for everybody, but that doesn't mean it will be bad for everybody as well. Now, taking a look at current satellite imagery, this is definitely going to be something we look at a lot today when forecasting that eclipse. And in fact, you can even see the eclipse over satellite imagery. And whenever we kind of get later into the day and the sun actually rises over the entire country, you'll be able to see a little shadow kind of cross on, again, right through the heart of the United States. So that'll be super fun to watch throughout the day. I'm sure you'll see plenty of those kind of satellite loops on the news tonight or on Twitter or Facebook or, wherever you kind of watch those sorts of videos. But again, will definitely be interesting to see. Now, looking at the actual water vapor, or excuse me, the infrared satellite, rather, you'll notice things are relatively calm. Now, again, we have this big area of spin up into the northern Great Plains, but other than that, we don't have any deep convection firing across the country right now, just meaning that any rain that is falling is more showery and not quite so thundery and strong and severe. That will, though, change pretty quickly this afternoon, and all of that is going to be due to this area of spin back towards Arizona and New Mexico right now that is kind of slowly working towards Texas. Eventually, that area is, again, going to kind of form into a pretty strong low pressure and start to pull northward some very impressive Gulf air, some Gulf moisture, some Gulf instability, and kind of pull that back up into some areas where we have more kinematic, dynamical kinematics, if you will, just meaning stronger and more conducive for severe weather. So, again, all that's going to really begin this afternoon, but last through much of this week. Again, all the way out into Thursday at least. Now, talking about the overall setup this week, again, right now we kind of have those two areas of low pressure I just mentioned. One in the northern Great Plains, another back down towards Arizona and California and kind of the New Mexico area. Now, as we go into this afternoon, this, one kind of at the bottom left of your screen is going to become the bigger story maker. In fact, this area of low pressure up into the northern Great Plains is going to just be more of a nuisance than anything. Now, as we move this into this week, you'll notice that area, again, kind of moving on through Texas, continuing to strengthen that pocket of blue, and then eventually kind of getting into our Wednesday and Thursday, finally kind of gets to get pulled northward here. So, again, kind of starting into Texas here, then eventually going to kind of move into the Little Rock, Memphis area, and finally, you'll notice slingshot its way up through the Ohio River Valley, and eventually into the northeast here as we move this ahead into our Friday, and eventually even into this weekend before finally we clear out a little bit before likely another storm enters the Pacific side of the country, and we'll have to watch that to again work eastbound in the future. All right, so temperatures today, again, we've rebounded nicely compared to just a couple days ago where we were only getting up into the 50s and 60s for a lot of folks. Today, back into the 70s and 80s, for a big chunk of the country, specifically here into the southern tier of the country. You'll notice again, here's kind of this dome of that warm, humid Gulf air getting pulled northward ahead of that next storm system. And again, this is going to really help to feed that storm, allow it to strengthen quickly, and have the threat to produce some pretty strong severe weather here going throughout the rest of this week, including the threat of tornadoes. Definitely, again, going to be on the table starting today and continuing all the way through Thursday afternoon and evening. All right. So I'm going to start by talking about today's severe weather threat, then I'm going to talk about that eclipse forecast and kind of the cloud cover that we're looking at, and then we'll finish discussing the severe weather event, and that's really going to pretty much take up all of our time for today. So again, that's just kind of the outline here for today's video. All right, so again, we already have a severe weather threat today. In fact, we're up to an enhanced risk of severe weather from Dallas kind of back west towards the Amarillo area in general, not quite that far west, but again, that kind of part of the country here is under the gun for some strong to severe storms. But even outside of there, that marginal risk stretching pretty well eastbound here, back towards Jackson, Mississippi, Tupelo, Little Rock, even back down near Shreveport and Baton Rouge. Sorry, gonna have to wake up a little bit here, still a little early in the morning. But either way, a lot of people under the gun for severe weather today. Now, the main threat today is going to be large hail, easily. We have a lot of the ingredients. We have kind of cold air aloft. We have steep lapse rates, just meaning that, again, that hail isn't going to have too much time to melt on its way down. And also, these thunderstorms are going to become quite explosive, meaning it could go from 0 to a lot very quickly as those air parcels kind of begin to rise and condensate. So, again, hail is going to be the big thing today, but tornadoes are also possible. Do not let your guard down, especially anywhere in kind of this yellow circled area on your map, or that yellow shaded area from the Storm Prediction Center is going to have the higher chance of seeing a couple tornadoes this afternoon and even this evening and even into the overnight a little bit. Well, let's time this out a little bit. This is getting into about noon this afternoon here, and you'll notice we're going to start getting some of these showers and storms to kind of finally begin to develop here from the Houston through kind of Jackson, Mississippi corridor. And these storms likely, again, won't be too strong this afternoon, but could become, have some gusty winds, some small hail, and, maybe a small tornado threat as well. But things really fire up going into later this afternoon. Now, this is about eclipse time here in the Texas area, and you'll notice all the rain that we're seeing is still relatively to the south and east of that path of totality, which I know is definitely a good thing, but you also have to remember, clouds don't stop just where it's raining. Oftentimes we get these high-level clouds kind of spread out pretty far from storms themselves, so our high-level cloud shield could really even extend more like this, kind of around this area of precipitation, and that's why we're concerned about those viewing experiences in places like Dallas and Little Rock. But again, we'll take a look at that cloud cover map in just a second. Now, moving this a little bit further ahead into time, we go kind of a little bit closer towards sunset, and this is when these storms really begin to get a little bit stronger, I think. You'll notice a little bit more widespread in this corridor, kind of from Dallas back towards northern Louisiana. Again, large hail is a very strong likelihood. Isolated damaging winds and a couple isolated tornadoes are also possible, and that's going to continue really through the overnight, especially now kicking up back towards the Panhandle. Look at some of these storms. These storms, I think, again, back near Amarillo and kind of just south of the Red River Valley here, indicating a bit more of a tornadic potential, definitely more isolated, and you might even be able to notice, look at kind of this kidney bean shape that's showing up on some of these cells out here. Again, that just tells me that these storms are likely going to be rotating and have supercellular characteristics. So again, large hail, damaging winds, and even tornado threat with some of those. And again, this is overnight, so this is getting closer towards 10, 11 o'clock tonight, Central Time. And again, some of those storms could continue to pack a punch before I think eventually we kind of get past the midnight hour and into tomorrow morning. And then we're left with just some widespread rain showers. But at that point, we're going to try to rejuvenate the atmosphere a little bit tomorrow afternoon and do it all again. We'll take a look at that here a little bit later on in the video. All right, very briefly, wanted to show you our significant tornado parameters for today, and this is just on one model, so again, don't take this to heart, but just know that, again, there are ingredients for the potential of tornadic storms this afternoon. Now, this is getting about, the noon time frame. You'll notice some of these values kind of start to tick up a little bit. Some of these little storms kind of getting up into the 1.5 area. But if you look at the key on the bottom of your screen, excuse me, why that is notable and definitely worth mentioning, still relatively low compared to, again, some of these higher numbers. When looking at STP values, Again, it's kind of a model that just does your job for you a little bit, but you really want to kind of see these more brighter colors. Once you get past yellow and into the orange and red colors, that's when things get a little bit more, okay, let's kind of watch out for this. And you'll notice as we go into overnight tonight, well, some of those colors kind of start to show up a little bit. This is about the time the sun is setting, and these ingredients now kicking up a little bit more here into central and southern Texas. Again, getting some of these values a little bit closer to that 2 to 3 mark. And as we go even later into tonight, again, you'll notice some of these values continue to kind of hang around that general area here through portions of Texas into the overnight tonight and even into tomorrow morning. But again, I don't necessarily love using this model all the time, but I think it's a good way to just show overall that there is a tornado threat here in kind of that risk area that the Storm Prediction Center has given us. So just kind of, if anything, take that away from this map. All right, I'm actually going to skip that map because I think it's probably doing a bit of a poor job today. So we'll go ahead and move to this one. All right, so cloud cover map. We'll start with this. This is our Canadian model, and I think this is doing a pretty good job at handling overall cloud cover. And this is, again, right around eclipse time, give or take an hour or two. Obviously, again, it's going to start somewhere and then move kind of up this path of totality. So not everyone's going to see the eclipse at the same time. So again, this will change some, but either way, you'll notice, again, I think this does a relatively good job at summarizing what we talked about. Pretty high density cloud cover from Louisiana through Mississippi, Alabama, and even here into the Houston area. But as you get further towards the north and further towards the northwest, notice how things kind of clear out a little bit in this actual path of totality, specifically in Arkansas. I think up here into Little Rock and into southern Missouri, viewing conditions could be quite nice. Now, the sky will not be completely clear. There will likely be some high-level cirrus clouds, maybe even some lower level kind of fair weather cumulus clouds to try to build in. But all things considered, a worthy solar eclipse viewing experience. The tougher forecast is a city like Dallas. Unfortunately, you're going to be right kind of in the mix here of some of those denser clouds trying to work on in. I think definitely higher level clouds are going to be a problem. But we'll have to see if some of those, again, thicker clouds try to move on in. Right now, I definitely think there will be some, but could still get an all right view of the eclipse this afternoon. Another model here, again, think it does a pretty good job at showing this widespread cloud cover kind of here, especially to the south and east of that totality line. Clearer conditions into Missouri and Arkansas. Again, still battling some higher level clouds, maybe even a couple lower level thicker clouds. But again, the thicker clouds shield off to the south and east. And again, Dallas, unfortunately, kind of just right there in the mix, right on the edge of some of those thicker clouds. All right, taking a very quick national view at precipitation this afternoon during general eclipse time here for most folks. You'll notice, again, we're really just going to have more showers and storms than anything here into the southern tier of the country, from Texas over towards Alabama, and then also those showers back up into the northern tier of the country. So it's almost a little bit of divine intervention here that we have storm systems on opposite sides of this path of totality, but relatively speaking, where that path is kind of in between these two circled areas, it's going to be, not the worst viewing conditions. Again, battling some clouds, but all things considered here, pretty good viewing conditions in this kind of circled area. Now, once again, you see some of these showers and storms showing up here into the Niagara Falls area, the Erie, Pennsylvania, State College back towards Cleveland, and even kind of the western half of New York State here. Definitely going to run into cloud cover issues there, but again, clearing pretty quickly back up through Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So most of us, again, I think are going to have pretty nice viewing conditions today. Unfortunately, though, just not quite that for everybody. All right, showing you a couple more maps here on the national scale here in terms of cloud cover. Again, I think this model is doing a pretty good job, and as I mentioned, nicer conditions here from kind of Ohio back down into Little Rock. Again, some higher level clouds, a couple low level clouds, but all things considered, a pretty clear sky for today's event. And then, as we've talked about the last couple of videos, probably the best place to be is going to be Maine, northern New Hampshire, and even probably northern Vermont there in the grand scheme of things here on cloud cover. All right, showing you another map. Again, more of the same. This map's a little bit thicker with that cloud cover, especially up into portions of New England. Going to have to watch out for that. I think, again, New York State, it's going to be pretty dicey, but once you get past that, especially once you hit New Hampshire onto Maine, really nice viewing conditions. Vermont could definitely be a little bit more dicey, a little bit closer to the New York side of things, but again, all things considered here in kind of the central part of the country, an all right path of totality, not too widespread cloud cover before, again, it intensifies back into Texas. All right, another map here. Again, just more of the same. I'll let you pause here, but again, just kind of showing you the same general idea that we've talked about. All right. So that is the eclipse forecast for today. Again, after today, we will no longer be talking about it, but I will mention, if you do happen to be in that path of totality and you get any cool pictures, definitely let me know. Consider sending them to me. There are plenty of ways to do that with all the social medias I have linked below. So, or you could just tag me on Twitter, or even have Facebook. So again, you could send it to me through Messenger, or however you want to do that. But again, that is totally up to you. All right, so that's the eclipse, as I mentioned. Now what we're going to talk about is this severe storm setup and this storm system as a whole, and the impacts that it's likely to bring here throughout the rest of this week. So first thing I think is a smart thing to do is just show our overall vorticity map, show you where the storm is going to form, where it's going to go, which I know we did a little bit of earlier, but we'll do it again here. So again, this is this afternoon. You'll notice we have a very impressive trough axis kind of dipping down well into California and Arizona. And what's eventually going to happen is all this vorticity associated with that trough is going to kind of begin to break off into more of a closed low pressure system. So this is getting into tomorrow afternoon and evening. You'll notice now these isobars are now kind of closed off or completely circular, not just attached to that trough. And again, this kind of continues to just slowly work in through Texas, going to bring that severe threat tomorrow, before eventually this storm system and associated trough kind of then begins to turn neutral and then negative on Thursday. And what I mean by that is, originally you saw my dashed line kind of look like this. Well, now if we kind of follow the isobars, it's more like this. It's more of a vertical trough or a neutrally tilted trough, which tells me this is strengthening. Whenever it goes from positive to neutral and then eventually to negative, which is kind of the peak of it, again, this is just the process of the storm system strengthening. And sure enough, here we go. By the time we get into Thursday and Friday, this tries to kind of turn a little bit more negative in nature. Not super negative, not super strong, but still, is going through those progressive stages here of a strengthening storm system. And eventually, again, going into this weekend, works on into the northeast, where we could likely see, I think, a pretty big flooding threat. We could definitely see some of that into coastal areas of New England, before finally that storm system works on through. And then this is a week from today. It almost looks like we're doing the exact same thing again. But again, we'll worry about that a little bit further on down the road. All right, severe storm potential. This is tomorrow's map, which again is very similar to today, as that storm system still kind of getting its act together and kind of really somewhat stationary right now. But tomorrow, again, we're going to do it all again. Likely, again, a tornado threat, large hail threat, and severe or strong wind, straight line wind at least, threat tomorrow afternoon, especially here from Houston over into Shreveport and areas kind of in between there in that enhanced risk on your map. But again, that slight risk is stretching well back into central Texas and all the way through much of the northern half of Louisiana. And that won't be all. We'll do it all again on Wednesday. So at this point, the storm really kind of begins to get its act together, starts to turn a little bit more neutral and negative, as I mentioned. And with that, it's also going to speed up a little. So you'll notice the severe threat now shifting pretty far to the east here on our Wednesday here, again with that enhanced risk right over the heart of Louisiana and Mississippi, from Biloxi back towards Mobile, Shreveport, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Jackson, Mississippi under the gun for strong storms, including the threat of tornadoes here. But even to the north of there, back up into central Alabama, central Mississippi, southern Arkansas, could see some strong storms as well on Wednesday afternoon. Before Thursday, I think we kind of get one last hurrah out of this storm system. And you'll notice the Storm Prediction Center has two separate areas outlined for severe weather. First one up right into the heart of Ohio and Kentucky, from Louisville over towards Columbus, Cleveland, and right there along the Ohio River. But another area here from kind of Raleigh back towards Charlotte, Charleston, Columbia, Savannah, Macon, and back into Jacksonville and the Panama City Beach area and into the Big Bend of Florida. So plenty of people going to be under the gun for severe weather here, and we'll definitely have to watch that here throughout much of this week. Alrighty, now I'm going to run you through this map. This is one I'm going to kind of breeze on through. This is just a quick summary of what this could look like on radar before we dive into more of a specific look here. But again, we'll kind of skip today. We talked about that. But here we go into Tuesday afternoon. You'll notice, again, widespread rain and precipitation possible tomorrow afternoon. And again, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a moment. So we're going to move ahead a little bit more and really start here at Wednesday afternoon. So here we go. You notice that low pressure really starting to strengthen here a good bit. With that, bringing a lot of moisture moisture out of the Gulf, a lot of precipitation, but also a lot of wind energy. So as you can imagine, when you get wind paths crossing like this, we're going to have some wind shear problems, and with that, likely some tornado problems Wednesday afternoon into the deep south, specifically there along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana and Mississippi. Now, eventually we get this into Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon. That storm strengthening quickly, moving north quickly here. That low pressure over likely Ohio or Indiana, and that's why we could be seeing a severe weather threat right along the cold front, and then also back down into the Carolinas, where we have a little bit more of a warm sector, and also potentially could get kind of a bit of a secondary surface low to try to develop down here, which could enhance some of those kinematics or that wind shear capability. So again, going to watch out for that. That's Thursday afternoon. Then we get into Friday afternoon, and here's that storm now pulling well up into Ontario, into Canada, and just a lot of rain, wind, and potentially flooding threat into the northeast from New Jersey all the way up through Long Island, into Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, and kind of surrounding areas. Could see a pretty dicey Friday afternoon. And even into our Saturday afternoon, as the storm finally pulls far enough northward, could get some back-end snow showers potentially in those higher terrains of maybe the Adirondacks, before I think going into Sunday afternoon, things once again kind of clear out and we get a little bit of a break before maybe we do it all again next week. All right, diving into this a little bit more here, we'll start with tomorrow's severe weather threat, and again, it's probably going to look pretty similar to today. Let's see if my map is going to work here. There we go. So we'll kind of move this ahead a little bit where we picked up. This is Tuesday morning. So I think tomorrow morning, again, widespread rain falling likely through much of Texas, Arkansas, and northern Louisiana, even Oklahoma. But it's tomorrow afternoon specifically that we'll have to watch for some more of these storms to form and potentially pack a punch. So you'll notice back in here, this area definitely going to be under the gun for some stronger storms, including, again, the threat of tornadoes Tuesday afternoon. As, this big low pressure continues to spin away here. And eventually, continues to rain, continues to have some isolated severe weather overnight Tuesday into Wednesday morning here. And again, even into Wednesday afternoon, you'll notice that low pressure forming at the surface a little bit more and slowly working eastbound. And again, bringing with it areas of showers, storms, and potentially some of that severe weather threat as well. So again, we're going to look at the STP values, or significant tornado parameter values. And, we'll just kind of time this out a little bit for you. So again, Tuesday afternoon here, I think this map actually agrees very well with what the Storm Prediction Center said. They had their enhanced risk kind of in here, and sure enough, the STP values agree that we could have the potential for some tornadic supercells in this area. And I'm just going to take a very quick sounding here, just to kind of look at it here. And so just looking at this map, or this graphic, if you will, or just graph in general, we've got pretty high dew points at the surface. Again, we have that curvature in the hodograph that you look for whenever forecasting tornadoes, and even some cave values kind of passing that 1500 mark. So why this is not an off-the-chart setup for tornadoes, it is definitely, one that we need to watch out for. And honestly, also looking at that sounding, these probably aren't going to be very beautiful supercell structures. These are going to be pretty messy. A lot of rain, probably rain-wrapped tornadoes if they do form tomorrow, with kind of a sounding looking like that. So again, definitely watching out for that. And again, those tornado ingredients even hold up a little bit in the overnight hours of Tuesday, before on Wednesday afternoon they really kind of reinvigorate themselves, this time again over southern Louisiana and southern Mississippi. And I'm not sure why my pen just got weirdly small there. Let's see here. There we go. A little bit better. So again, even into Wednesday afternoon, that tornado threat will continue for a lot of folks in this area. And we'll pick up there on Wednesday morning and move this into Wednesday afternoon. And again, just show you some pretty widespread showers, storms, and again, some tornadic potential Wednesday afternoon here in kind of that circled area on your map. Now, once again, I will mention, this is not going to be, very pretty storms. These are going to be kind of messy clusters of storms, a lot of convection involved here. So again, this is not kind of your traditional high plains, pretty, supercells that are, lined up in a nice row. This is going to be very messy, and we're used to this here in Dixie Alley, but again, just know it's going to be kind of one of those setups here for Wednesday afternoon. Again, as I mentioned, those significant tornado parameter numbers, again, really peaking up here on Wednesday afternoon into the southern part of that area that we talked about. So again, just kind of reiterating more of the same there. All right, I can close that because you're going to have it pulled up right here anyway. So again, that's not the only threat we have to worry about though. We do also have a flooding threat in these areas. So tomorrow, a moderate risk of flash flooding through northern Louisiana and southern Arkansas. Again, as I've said multiple times now, this is a very messy storm mode. So it's going to be a lot of rain that kind of falls over some of the same areas within a relatively short amount of time. So definitely need to watch out for that tomorrow as well as Wednesday. In fact, Wednesday, an even bigger area here for just about all of Mississippi and Alabama with the threat of some flash flooding. As again, same story, just this messy convective line of storms kind of parks over some of the same areas and kind of trains itself out of the Gulf over some of these same communities. So definitely need to watch out for that flooding threat. All right, now let's talk about Thursday a little bit. I am a little partial living in the Carolinas, so again, we're not going to go super in-depth on Thursday just because we're still about 4 days away and a lot of things are going to change. But just to give you the general idea of why we're concerned about severe weather on Thursday is this map right here. This is our 850 millibar wind map, so this is kind of what we call the low-level jet. This shows us how strong the wind is, not really that far above our heads, and this is what is really important to producing tornadoes east of the Mississippi River. And you'll notice some of these colors here that are showing up, if I can pick a color that shows up a little bit better on our map. In fact, I'm going to draw this out even a little bit more. But this area right in here, notice how we have these really dark reds and kind of these brighter yellow colors and even some orangish colors. That tells me that winds are going to be very strong here, not that far above our heads, and that has the potential to produce tornadoes anytime we see wind shear like that in the lower levels of the atmosphere. Now, another ingredient is CAPE, or thunderstorm fuel. We'll definitely need to watch out for that. Thursday afternoon, again, you'll notice not off the chart levels of CAPE here, but we're still getting close to that 1,000 joule per kilogram mark, and that, combined with the amount of wind shear I just showed you, is definitely enough to produce severe weather. And obviously, these CAPE values could definitely uptrend as we get a little bit closer, so that's why the Storm Prediction Center has already gone ahead and outlined that severe weather threat, just because of how much wind shear we know we're going to have, and the potential that some instability could overlap it. All right, final two maps here that I'll show you. This one is rainfall over the next week, and you'll notice, again, with a storm like this, especially a slow-moving one at the start of its life, we're going to see a lot of rain. In fact, we could see widespread areas that see near half a foot of rain here into portions of southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and northern Mississippi. Again, isolated spots definitely could see half a foot of rainfall. Widespread, though, I think 3 to 5 inches is going to be a pretty safe bet for a lot of you folks, and likely 2 to 3 inches of rain here in kind of these reddish colors showing up on your map. So again, very rainy time frame here, and even up into the Ohio River Valley and into the Northeast, going to see a lot of this rain as well before the week is over. All right, final map here, and then I'll let you go. I know this has been a pretty long video. We're getting a little close to 30 minutes, which is a little bit longer than I like to do, but that's all right. A lot of information to talk about here. So. All right, temperatures this afternoon, again, it's going to be warm for a lot of folks, and that's going to continue into tomorrow afternoon for our Thursday for those of us that are not seeing rain. Again, this kind of corridor of cloud coverage and rainfall is definitely going to limit some of those temperatures here, really kind of right along the I-20 corridor and the I-40 corridor. From really New Mexico all the way back towards the Carolinas. But north of there, again, still well above average temperatures, getting back into that spring-like feel. And that continues for the days leading up to this storm system itself. So Wednesday afternoon, again, where it's raining, it's going to be cooler. Where it's not raining, it's going to be warmer, as you might expect. But what I do want you to notice here is after the storm moves on through and we get into Friday and this weekend, we are going to once again cool down relatively significantly, I think. So again, that pocket of cold air kind of funneling in behind the storm system, as we often see, could lead to another chilly weekend, or maybe not chilly, but definitely below average nonetheless compared to your average April temperatures. Before, again, I think next week we probably warm back up ahead of what could potentially be another storm system. All right, so talked about a lot today. Definitely, as you would expect on any solar eclipse day, we got that to talk about. We've got severe weather, we've got flooding, we've got just a little bit of everything happening out there. So again, hopefully you found some use in the video. If you did, definitely like it. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And so again, hope you have a great rest of your day. Go out there, enjoy that eclipse. Make sure you're viewing it safely, though. And I will see you all tomorrow.